Woo.
Well, there we go. So welcome to another Fortuna MBA Admissions Masterclass with a focus on how to get into Wharton. This is one in a series of three incredibly insightful sessions. Last week, we were looking at Harvard Business School with Carla and Alterel. You can catch that on YouTube. Fantastic recording. And then next week, we'll be looking at Stanford GSB. My name is Matt Symonds. I'm one of the co-founders of Fortuna. I also host the Center Court MBA Festival with poets and quants, and then I get to host events like this one. And that's what makes these masterclasses so valuable. They're my panelists. They've got extraordinary admissions backgrounds from those top schools, Harvard, Stanford, Wharton. And today, no different. I'm joined by Judith Silverman Hodara, the former director of MBA admissions at Wharton, and her former colleague. They were both at Wharton together, Michel Belden, who was an associate director of admissions. Now, I'm not sure that there's anybody that has more insider knowledge about Wharton, so you're in the right place for the next hour. They've been consistently the most successful coaches for getting clients into the M7 schools, Philadelphia included, and I love working with them. Our clients love working with them, and I love doing panels like this because I learn something new every time. We've got a busy agenda, as you can see, lots to get through, and the best insights. We'll be looking at the school and its culture. Who said that Wharton was a finance school? There is so much more. And of course, through that lens of admissions, what is it that Blair Mannix and her team are looking for in this year's pool? Test scores, academics, showing that you've got the academic rigor. You'll be crunching numbers at Wharton, of course you will, but you'll also be having fun. There are over 100 clubs once class is finished, and Wharton specifically wants to know how you'll contribute to that Wharton community. There are other voices that will also be speaking on your behalf. We'll be looking at how recommenders can really go to bat and share the sort of insights and perspectives to help you secure your place. And of course, Wharton has a very special approach to the interview, what they call the team-based discussion, this wonderfully dynamic opportunity for you to shine, but also for you to help others to shine. We'll be talking about strategies for that. How you stand out. Wharton last year had a record application volume. Not sure what that's going to look like this year, but it's still a dream school for so many. So Judith and Michel, thank you for getting started. And I guess why Wharton, a school that you know so well, that you love so fondly, the oldest business school, I think, in the United States. Perhaps, Judith, some of the things that you think make Wharton so special.
I really think for being the oldest school of business in the United States, which is funny, it was a point that when we were at Wharton, we talked about a lot. We needed everybody to know it, in fact, was not Harvard, but it was Wharton. And Joseph Wharton really, wanted to establish a place that there was going to be not only a place at the time for young men to study business and learn about how to build the country, but also a place of innovation. And I think that that's something to keep in mind, that it really has continued throughout its very storied history. A couple of things have changed at Wharton since its beginning. It has the largest class that it's ever had. So currently, about 850 incoming students a year, which is up about, I would say, 25 to 30 places from when Michel and I were on our staff. 850, Michel, would have been a lot easier, I think, for us to manage. We would get to say yes a lot more. And certainly it has this legacy of affiliation through the University of Pennsylvania, which is, certainly, again, one of the older institutions of higher education in the US. So it's got this really interesting foot in both worlds, both this very, very storied past with really helping with American industrialism and American banking at the time, but then really looking forward. And Michel's going to be talking about this a little bit. Michel, as you look at Wharton 2.0, and I know that's definitely something that you've spent a lot of time thinking about.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Judith and Matt. I'm so excited to talk about Wharton, and Judith got us kicked off wonderfully because Wharton is such an amazing place. And what I'll say is what I'm really excited about these days is what Erica James has brought to the university. And it's all about the forward-looking, what's next? How is Wharton going to be on the cutting edge of data analytics, AI? I mean, we can go on and on. And they're continuing to push their students and their alumni, and they push lifelong learning opportunities. It's not, I always say, it's obviously any of these schools, it's not a 2-year investment. It is a lifelong investment, which can speak to their alumni network and so many other things. But we're excited to dive in and kind of give you guys our insider look in what are they looking for. And it is a truly special place.
Well, one thing, Michelle, that certainly changed, Judith referenced those young men that joined the early Wharton classes. Now, just as many young women for 3 consecutive years. Wharton was the first M7 school to bring in a class with more than 50% women. They then repeated that in the 2 subsequent years. That's just one reflection, I think, Michelle, of what a diverse place it is.
Absolutely. And I mean, way back when Judith and I were there, that was one of the initiatives we really took to heart, is how do we engage young women and how do we bring it to parity and get in 50-50? And so proud when they finally did it a couple of years ago. And again, they're continuing to push the diversity among all different, cultures and international students and backgrounds. It's just the mix is, again, this is what really enhances your experiences, which we'll get to, which is why I think their team-based discussion interview works for them. It's the culture of community, of collaboration, and they want to know how can you come and contribute to that, be part of it, and we prioritize that, definitely.
Well, every couple of years, Fortuna does this deep dive for HBS. We've just published for Stanford, and in the coming weeks for Wharton, where we go beyond those incoming class profiles, and they'll talk about test scores and the percentage of women, international students, what people have been studying. And we look, I think it's about 86% of the class, where they studied, what they studied, early career trajectory, where they worked, the job positions, the transitions that they've made. Interesting that Deloitte has nudged one of the MBBs out of the top 3 feeder schools. You'll get to see that as we launch the deep dives. But with 850 students, tremendous diversity. So we talked about it being beyond finance, the clubs, everything else that's going on. Michelle was speaking to that, Judith, but whether it's healthcare, Warby Parker and Retail 3.0, marketing, innovation, entrepreneurship, Wharton's got it all, right?
I really feel like it does. And I know, Matt, you sort of tipped your hand a little earlier and said that Wharton really had been known for finance when it started. And there's no doubt about that people are still flocking from all the banking cities in the world to come and study at probably what's considered the premier institution for finance in the United States and in the world. But without a doubt, incredibly well looked at for marketing, entrepreneurship. They've just restarted or launched, I should say, an entire AI initiative for individuals that are going to be involved in that kind of technology and that kind of, knowledge gathering. And so it's almost as if you have to ignore what you think you know about Wharton and really begin to look at all the other opportunities that are being offered. It's interesting when I listen to the radio a lot of times on NPR, for example. I'll hear Wharton faculty being interviewed, giving market insights about what's going on. And, certainly with a lot of the changes now in the American economy, it is fascinating just to hear, hey, I knew that professor, or I heard that professor lecture, and I'm sure that Michelle can agree. Something that is also incredibly important to Wharton is its breadth and depth. And so you're looking at not only your core curriculum in your first year, but all of these electives that you're going to be taking across the school and across the university, which to me is really special. You can take up to 3 classes outside of the Wharton curriculum. So if you find yourself really interested in how the School of Communications can help you, for example, with your concentration, or maybe you want to take a class in the School of Arts and Sciences. There are lots of different ways to really create a Wharton degree that's going to speak to you and your particular talents.
Well, the chances are many of our viewers follow a professor like Adam Grant on LinkedIn or through the many, many channels. A great demonstration of the human inside business as well as he thinks about that. There are so many electives. San Francisco, no doubt, Michelle, reinforces connection to tech and cutting edge startups. Is that something with clients that you reflect on, how they can then shape and really personalize so many different course options to make the Wharton MBA really fit and align with them?
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's what Wharton does, bring to the opportunity for you as a student is it does have that flexibility, as we say right here in its core, and to really shape what your experience and what you want it to feel like and look like. And I'll just say that's what needs to be reflective in the application, and that's what they want to understand. So joining us today and continuing your research and outreach to really understand the value and the fit with the program is key. And the San Francisco, the opportunity to go there and do a semester there, and some people, that is something that really aligns with their goals, with their wanting to expand and enhance their skills and knowledge. And so I think that is something people definitely can hone in on. And if you don't already know about it, look into it, and especially obviously just with the location. And you can take advantage of that opportunity along with, as we kind of, if I go down the slide, the global immersion programs as well. I mean, they are bringing people in to be global leaders. And how can we help you shape your global mindset? And there's so many different ways to do that through the global modular classes, through the global tracks. I mean, there's so many things. The McNulty Leadership Program offers many things within the leadership ventures. So again, really looking for what is it that I believe, again, you want to get the most out of it. So you need to go in with that game plan, with, really that focus on how am I going to take advantage? And first you have to understand what is being offered to you. And Wharton is just, it's again, finance is a given, but look into all these other areas. And again, that you really, going back to what Matt said, you get to shape it. You really get to go in and pick and choose and really come out on the other end, really to help shape what is next for you professionally.
Well, I mentioned that later on we'll be talking about the interview stage and what Wharton describes as their team-based discussion. And Judith, for me, that's a reflection again of how Wharton has continued to evolve. Some used to peg it as being, a very competitive, individualistic school, and yet I think the TBD, and we've worked with hundreds of clients on their interview process, to really engage with each other and collaborate together.
Very much so. And I would say that that's probably one of the greatest innovations that Wharton has come up with in the past number of years, is really from the jump showing that this is not about you telling me as an interviewer how fabulous you are or all the things that you've done, and here's the list and here's all the things, but really showing me as an observer to your interview, let's just say, how you're able to work with other people in the room. And this is definitely showcased in the learning teams and the cohort structure that Matt, you've highlighted, because nothing happens at Wharton as an individual. Really, it's going to be a lot of 4 or 5 other people that have mostly been randomly selected. There's a little bit of tinkering to make sure that they don't get a lot, the whole team is from technology, their whole team is from consulting, but working together to understand how to get the best out of one another, encouraging each other to perhaps dive into pieces of a classroom puzzle that maybe they're not so comfortable with, and really lifting one another up. So the way that the 850 is structured is that you have a small learning team, 5 or 6 people, and then a cohort structure, which is going to give you kind of a group that you're traveling through your classes with during your first year. So these are the people that are sort of like your neighborhood. And then you get another group of people that's going to be called a cluster, and so forth and so on. But you're really beginning with this nuclear idea, which does show up in the learning, in the team-based discussion, which is really learning how to work in small teams and then bringing that talent out to a larger environment. I can't speak highly enough about the learning teams. And when we get to the interviews, I'll tell you a little bit about my experience, as Michel can, about why we started this in the first place those years ago, it was instituted when Michel and I were both there, and we can give you the insights as to why that happened.
Well, I guess that'll be part of the discussion about what Wharton is looking for in the very engaged, dynamic candidates. Perhaps, Michel, we've got several pillars, I think, as we share this screen. Take your pick. Where would you like to start in some of the qualities and characteristics the MBA Admissions Committee loves to see?
I'll go ahead and start with the first one. I think I'm just, working off of what Judith just said, just that collaborative mindset, which is shown in their selection of how they run their interviews now, is collaboration. I mean, first and foremost, you're coming in, and again, your experience, I always tell my clients as they are talking about themselves, is what are you bringing and contributing, by extension to make enhancing the experience of your classmates, because that's what it's all about, which goes back to the diversity of the class of 850. So that's what, one thing they are looking for is, how have you shown that, right? Through your work, through teamwork, through, extracurriculars as an undergrad, to what you do now outside of work, along with leadership potential. And when we say leadership potential is, you don't have to have that manager title yet, or even a title. It's not about the title. It's about, what have you done? Have you taken on additional responsibilities? Have you stepped into a leadership role because you were asked to, or you raised your hand to do it? And the ways that they look for that, obviously, are through your application, are the letters of recommendation. Again, have you taken up leadership roles within, in community engagement activities? Because they're hoping to shape and prepare you to be a business leader, right? So these are all, the first little pillar, as Matt said, that they are really honing in on and looking for, that you have shown this in your background in different areas.
Now, both of you have read and discussed thousands of applications of candidates to Wharton. And the idea of, job titles, you're an associate, you're an analyst, did you quickly look beyond that, Judith? That would obviously give you some sort of track record. But we talk about things like self-awareness and humility that seem so deeply personal and well beyond the job title.
Without a doubt. And I can tell you, and Matt knows, because we used to talk when I was reading applications. Sometimes it would be the middle of January and I'd be looking at a stack thinking, oh my gosh, this is a lot to get through. But what gets every admissions officer through the process is really learning about the individuals that are applying. And I can't underscore that enough. Your score is your score. It was on a given day in the month of October and you got a score. What is more important is who you are as a person and how you're able to showcase that within the essays and within the letters of recommendation and the ways that you talk about yourself. So I can tell you without a doubt, and I think Michelle's going to agree, the first thing I would do is read the essays. I was less interested in the GPA, vaguely interested in the GMAT, and really wanted to get to know you as an individual. So even before the resume, any of that stuff, I would flip through 5 pages and get to the essays, because that would then begin to tell me who you are, what you care about, why you think that Wharton's a good fit for you. And all of these pieces would then inform how I was going to react to the other things that you were then sharing. So of course, yes, GMAT, resume, all those other things matter, GPA, but they were not at all the first point of conversation, because later on, when Michel and I were in the committee room and we would champion your cause or an applicant's cause, it would be because of that information that they've shared with us. I would never lead with, oh, here's a candidate with a 750. That's kind of boring, right? And not that unusual. But what I would start with was, let me tell you why I feel so strongly about this particular story. So I can't emphasize that enough. It's really, I'm going to go for pillar number 3. I feel like we're playing a game show. Self-awareness, humility, and a clear sense of purpose. So that, combined with who you are, is really such an important piece of sharing your story with Wharton.
Well, I'm going to stay, Michelle, with this theme of the authenticity, that personal touch, because we're hearing from admissions officers a very real concern that they have. All of those consultants and software engineers and financiers probably loading their resume into GPT and say, hey, here's the Wharton essay, come up with my story. But they can clearly see that AI input, and what they're missing is that personal voice. Is that something that you're very, very aware of?
Very aware of. I mean, Judith really said it perfectly. And I will tell you now, on this end that we've been doing now for 10 plus years, is the work with our clients is you might not think it's interesting, but first let us help. We want to get to know you so you can help tell your story. At the end of the day, I've gotten to the point that I tell my clients, when you push submit, if that application reflects who you are, what's important to you, what you value, who you want to be, that's all you can do. And that's my goal with my clients, to really, in a partnership, help them do that, because you are all stars in your own special way and you all shine. And I want to help the committee connect with your application through those essays, through the data forms, if they give you the opportunities to give them a little more information, to get that to know you. And really, we want to talk about, again, both professionally and personally. It is the well-roundedness of who you are. And what do you believe is possible? And what do you want to work on? And what gets you excited, both at work and outside of work? And that's, at the end of the day, Wharton especially, this is something that is critical to them. As Judith just told you when we talked in committee, that which again, it goes back to the team-based discussion, that they get to see you shine in a group. And what does that look like? Your success in that group is the success of the group. So if you have that mindset and you go into it of like, your job is to tell your story, and I think that is the connection you are looking for. And go to Matt's word, I am all about being honest and authentic, and that connection, it will jump off the paper or the application. And I'm telling you, our friends ChatGPT, they can't get you there. They just can't. Like, you have those feelings that you do need to take the time, I will say, and reflect to really think about how and what how's your story been, and the dots that you've connected, and they're not in a straight line, and they might go backwards and then forwards, but who are you? We're learning and growing, and who are you today because of it? And ultimately, who do you want to become? So,
well, when Blair Mannix and Jake and the rest of the team get swapped out for machines, we'll let you know yours. But you know, they're very real and human. I mean, Blair's been with UPenn and with Wharton so many years. Again, much like both of you, really reading to get to understand the candidate that lies behind that. Now, Judith, you realize, of course, that you've gone on public record and said, yeah, 750, or would that be a 715 on the new GMAT focus?
I know. I just threw myself under the bus.
But it is a very academically rigorous place, sometimes framed as being unapologetically quant driven. So where do 4 years, 4 years of undergrad and test scores fit in getting the sense of how an individual is going to thrive at Wharton?
So yes, Wharton and a couple of the other M7s are unapologetically quanti. And you want to be ready for that, right? So I talk to students all the time about, well, how can you prepare for the fact that, boot camp starts the first week of August, and you don't want to feel like you're rushing to catch up with everybody. So you do want to have that quantitative background that is either going to show up in your GMAT or a very, very strong undergraduate quantitative background, or you're having people vouch for your quantitative ability within the context of your letters of recommendation. Or here's idea number 4, you can take some additional classes outside of work to help shore up that quant background. It is a strong number, Matt, 732, but it's really because Wharton just wants to make sure that you're going to be able to hit the ground running when you show up on campus that first day. So they don't want to set you up to feel like you're behind the 8 ball. They really want to make sure that you're ready for that rigor. And lots of different ways, again, to show that ability. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to show up in undergrad and work and GMAT and, but some of these ideas and some of these ways of showcasing your talents is certainly going to be a part of the story. And you can see that nothing is the only thing that matters. And I think that's something that, Matt, you're pointing to, is that it is very much a holistic review. As I explained earlier, I was always flipping through to page 6 to get to the essays. So that's certainly something that we want candidates that we work with to understand, and to not get dejected because of a score that doesn't appear to them to be the one that they're looking for.
Well, both of you have always, and I know you both personally, and how you always look for the best in everyone. So I can imagine you struggling to have rejected candidates that you really believed in. There are ways, Michel, for the GMAT, maybe you've taken the CFA or particular courses on your transcript from undergrad in your master's degree, even work. There are lots of ways to show that analytical mindset that is going to help you thrive in the MBA classroom.
Yes, absolutely. Again, I think when we were in those seats, Judith, and we were looking at the entire application, and if there was a concern for the analytical abilities of a candidate, the biggest thing would be our hesitation to set someone up for failure, right? Because there's no way around it. Wharton is a very rigorous program, right? That's not something they're proud of. But again, as Judith just said, set yourself up for success. So again, if it isn't ultimately that test score, are there other ways for you to show it? There are many other ways. Matt and Judith just listed them, and they absolutely hold value. So don't think they don't. And the admissions officers will go through your transcript and see what classes did you take? How well did you do? Have you gotten any additional certifications? Have you taken MBA math? Have you, does your recommender speak to your analytical abilities and you crunching numbers and building models, or maybe it wasn't when you came in, but wow, look at you now because you have pushed yourself to learn how to do that. You are capable of, of thriving in that space. So I think they are definitely not just looking at the test score, moving on to the next thing. Absolutely, that's not how it works. So just know that there are different ways for you to really present and show your ability to handle the analytical rigor that Wharton is going to ask of you when you do step on campus.
And you know the time that you'll spend with each candidate profile. It's not next. There's an optional essay, Judith, that is embedded into the application. It could be used in a situation like this, perhaps to address your second year of undergrad when you were involved in so many clubs that grade. So, I mean, it's not 3 pages of, but nevertheless, the admissions committee, it's better that they know.
It is very much better that they know. I sometimes say you want to make sure that you tell your parents you crashed the car before they find out. So it's the same kind of thing. You want to be upfront. You can just state the facts. Look, I was overextended. Family member was sick, working too much activity. Not everybody is going to have a stellar, unblemished college record. And a lot of things can happen. Usually it happens a little earlier. So if you're just, you're 18, you're on your own for the first time, you're figuring out how to do laundry. And so maybe your GPA wasn't so strong your first semester or your second semester, or maybe something happened junior year, right? So I really sort of make it clear it's not the time to say, I'm sorry, but it's just recognizing this happened. I have learned since this time that I need to balance my extracurriculars with my blah, 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 and I'm ready for the rigors of the Wharton curriculum. So there's really nothing that can't be addressed in that optional essay. And the other thing I'll add is you don't want admissions officers wondering. You never want a big old question mark over Michel's head that says, well, what happened, right? You want to be upfront about it and be clear about what happened, how you rectified, and now what you're doing, right? So kind of just moving through, literally can be 2 sentences or 3 sentences. And that's why I really like the optional essay, because it does give the applicant and in our case, our students, the opportunity to say, hey, this is what's going on. Let me tell you a little bit more context.
Forgive me if I'm nostalgic in the coming few minutes. You've reminded me that I did crash my mom's car and ran breathlessly upstairs, just handed them the savings book that had all of my birthday money from the last 50 years. They didn't understand what had happened, and then the story unfolded. But sharing stories, I mean, that's also part of the essays, and Wharton gives you, 2 strong essays with word limits. But they start with this idea of how you're really going to benefit from the 2-year experience at Wharton. So, Michel, where do you like to get started with clients to think around this and what Wharton is really asking and what they might share?
Yeah. I'll say first, Wharton, the essay 1 is, what are you going to take from the Wharton experience? How is it going to benefit you? And obviously, what are you looking, as we said earlier, looking to get out of it? So picking and choosing, where are you going to fit in the sense of the classes, the knowledge, the skills that you want to take away? So really, why are you looking to get an MBA, and specifically why the Wharton Business School is a good fit for you? But to take a step back, I start with my clients is first, they need to understand of how they are going to present their career vision. What is next for them? Again, so if they haven't already, we will do it together. Or if they've started to, there definitely could be a path A, B, and C after business school. Let's discuss it. Which one really, are you most passionate about? Going back to being authentic, we want it to be ambitious. We also want it to be achievable with all those things. But really, when you are sharing your goals, your career vision is the context of what's informed those career goals. So what have you done professionally to date? And also giving that context and also understanding the why behind it. So why do you want to go do that? I always say, even the easiest thing, I feel like repetitive, is what is the problem you're looking to help solve? Within what industry? What do you believe is possible? The thing that I'm continuing to be blown away by is what these young people continue to think is possible. And they get me on board, and I believe it. But what do you want to achieve? And how is an MBA going to help you achieve those goals, right? So, and this is what Wharton, those career goals to be able to articulate. And then it's really then aligning what your key themes are and what you've really prioritized that you want to get out of business school is what Wharton is offering. Again, we talked about through their programs, their offerings, classes, the global experiences, professors, their research outside of class, with the treks, with the conferences. I mean, so many things. But I know Judith, she always had a great line: if you're not quite sure, you're going to come here and just drink from the fire hose. It's going to be a disaster. You need to enter with a sense of, you remember that, right, Judith?
I do remember that. And I don't think I was the first person to say it, but I definitely agree with it.
Yeah. And we say you need to understand and show and tell that you are entering with a sense of purpose, right? And what skills and knowledge are you looking that you need for those future goals? Either new skills, again, this is my toolkit, what I'm missing, and the tools you have that you need to enhance, right? So those things you really want to be clear. So Matt, first you need to really identify that, how you're positioning yourself. And then the next thing is like, okay, Wharton specifically, it's not a laundry list of classes. It's this specific class because I've looked into it and I understand that I'm going to be able to learn X, Y, and Z. And this professor. And so my point is, we really need to be thoughtful about the resources and offerings that are going to make your experience as, get the most out of it, and be able to therefore to set you up to achieve those goals you are setting for yourself. Because at the end of the day, maybe the path A that you've mentioned, like maybe it would veer after a couple of years at business school, but you understand what you get excited about, what kind of role you want, if it's in operations, if it's in strategy. Does that make sense? If the healthcare, what's going on right now, do you want to work at the hospital? Do you want to work? So it's like, and what value you believe you can bring to them. And then Wharton's just going to open up your world to those opportunities and what's possible.
I think hearing you describe that, Michel, I think about this. You described, a partnership and a journey. It's not simply, okay, there's the round one deadline. What does Wharton want to hear? Submit. We talk a lot with candidates about enjoying this rare opportunity to step back. And this idea of, think about skill sets that you have, the skill sets that you would love to develop, the doors that might open, and where that might take you. Judith, this enjoyment of the process. Sometimes clients are like, really? And yet, and they go through this, working with Michel, with yourself, with other colleagues. It's like, wow, such a sense of self-awareness. I mean, that's a gift, right?
It really is. And I think it's hard to imagine when you're in the middle of it, but the opportunity to take a step and say, okay, I've been working for 3 years, I've been working for 5 years, I've been working for 8 years. Is this really where I want to be heading? How do I, excuse me, allow this opportunity to, maybe I'm going to switch gears a little bit, or maybe I'm going to discover things about myself that I didn't know before. And I do a lot of phone calls with students that are thinking about working with us. Some people have said that we do the best consultation calls in the industry. And it's a half an hour. We get to know you. You get to ask a ton of questions. I can't recommend it highly enough. And one thing that a lot of students will say to me is that they're looking forward to that chance to really reflect on how they got here in the first place and what it's going to look like after the MBA program. So that's a little plug, by the way, for our half-hour consult. You can learn more about how to do that after our chat today. But I really feel this chance not to just take everything for granted and not to just roll into the next job and the next opportunity, but to hold still for a sec and say, I really care a lot about this. How can I make that happen for myself? And that's something Michel is incredibly gifted at doing. And we all love doing in our team is walking with you on that path. So not just saying, here's all the things you need to do, go do it, but really talking with you about it and helping you to figure out what those next steps are going to look like. And so Matt, I'm glad you let, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm going to correct you on one point. You said some people say they're the best 30-minute consult.
Oh.
Everybody.
I'm so sorry.
Someone yesterday was like, wow, I feel like we've known each other for 10 years.
Yep.
And if we can achieve that. But yes, we love to have those calls, and it's a wonderful mirror, I think, into the next steps and what comes next. And this sense, now, Michel, back to you, because you said what you want to take from the Wharton experience. But now the switch, SA2, what are you going to give? What are you going to contribute? So talk us through this one.
That's right. So the SA2 is, what are you bringing to contribute to the experience of your classmates and impacting the Wharton community while you are there and for the 2 years. And I will have to say, Wharton is a true continued connection of what's after with the alumni network. So it's really now reflecting on, again, as we say in the slide, what have you done, that's really been important to you that you want to share through this 400-word essay. And I just can't get over still that 100 words is so tough, but it is for me. I wish it was still 500, but with 400 words, you can do it. Is to share, a story or stories of something that was really meaningful and important to you. Did you deal with adversity? Did you really develop a, real great understanding of something at work and become the expert that you could then bring to a classroom and share with your classmates? Where has your passion been? And again, this is getting to know you, and then showing your potential contribution, and then being able to specifically speak to a Wharton club, a Wharton initiative that you're going to bring this background and experience, and you look and are excited to bring and contribute to. A panel discussion. Do you want to create relationships between multiple clubs? Given we all work together and there's overlap, and what do you, again, do you have new ideas? That's something that you want to, propose. I mean, there's so many things that you could really jump into here, but again, the reflection of what that stands out to you that you want to share with them, because again, we go back to the words collaboration of that culture. It's the ethos on campus, and it is a student-run community. And where am I going to find you on a Wednesday at 3 o'clock? Tell me, bring me to that moment. I want to know where to find you. Because again, 850 students, that's a lot, but where am I going to find you because of your excitement of what it could be AI now, right? It could be the healthcare. Tangen Hall has been built, the venture lab, what is going on there across the University of Pennsylvania. So it's really exciting, but this is what are you bringing, and how do you see yourself jumping in, taking a leadership role, contributing? It could be the arts. I mean, I could start naming just so many things, but it's exciting because there's no right answer. That's my point. It's about you and your story. And again, I think that connection with the reader will definitely happen if you really, are honest and authentic. And this is what I've been doing or what I've done, and I really am excited. I've, spoken to the president of this club or this organization and what they've shared with me and what et cetera. Like, that's what they are looking for in SA2.
Right. So no right answer on where to be Wednesday at 3 p.m. I do feel that you said happy hour. That might not be the right answer. It's a little early in the afternoon. But I mean, with that you're beyond the MBA classroom and all of these clubs. Something, Judith, that Michel just mentioned, and we recommend to all of our clients. We've got this massive network of clients that are now at these schools or recent graduates from these schools. And the idea of reaching out perhaps to someone that had a leadership role in a club that you'd be specifically interested in, because listing all the electives in paragraph 8 and 9, I could probably do that. It would take me, 3 minutes? But a conversation that you had with Jessica or Michael or Deepak, that is surely a great way to show the admissions committee that you've really taken the time to get to know the school in a far more personally relevant way.
Without a doubt, I think that is so important. And look, you're going to reach out to 20 people and maybe 12 of them will get back to you, but the 12 are still more than you would have known otherwise. And so I really want to encourage students to take the opportunity, go through your networks, reach out to club presidents or club secretaries, and people are going to want to share with you why they did things. Like, everybody loves to talk about themselves. And I think Wharton in particular has a great take the call mentality, which is something that really means that you can hear back from folks that want to share with you what their experiences have been like. You can get all this great information off of web pages, no doubt, but it's really these conversations that can add that color commentary, which will really help you feel like you speak the language of the school. Sometimes, Matt, I liken applying to a university a lot like learning a foreign language, right? You can learn it in books, or you can learn it by actually speaking it with someone else that also speaks that language. And it just shows your sort of your fluency and your comfort if you're able to, express things that are really relevant for your application and for the program. So that's something, again, I think for Wharton is really beautiful, is that people do want to talk to you about their experiences.
I agree. Can I just jump in to piggyback? And Wharton gives you the easiest way to start. I will give you all our tip is the Wharton graduate assistants, or they're called fellows now, which are the second-year students that are selected and part of the admissions team. They are all listed on the website.
Mm-hmm.
They might be doing a little, flip over right now with school ending and going to next year, but they give you all of their backgrounds and contact information. So you could, again, oh, this person worked in health, first consulting and then healthcare. And, I want to reach out to them, or they're from, my country of origin. And it is all on their website. I think they're about, now, Judith, like 60-ish students.
Yeah.
That is a great first place to start, because like you said, they are there and wanting and willing to speak with you. So, and again, when you talk to one person, maybe they have the friend that's interested in the same things you are, and they'll put you in touch with them, and it all just goes from there.
Well, if any of you are now watching this on YouTube, you can rewind, 15, 20 minutes and watch how to approach these essays. But it would be perhaps misplaced of us if we didn't look at some of the mistakes that you can make in the essays. And I think both of you have seen it all, with the years that you worked in the Wharton admissions office and then with clients. Take us through. Do you have a favorite among some of the examples that we've given, or a head in the hands moment? Perhaps, being generic, we've already insisted on bringing that very personal, authentic voice. Where do you think that candidates go wrong?
I would say that the laundry list can be a real tough one to overcome. You're so eager to show the school that I've read a lot about you and I understand this and this and this, but you don't have to list all the classes that they already know that they offer, right? You want to talk about why taking a class with, Professor Smith is something that you've been thinking about, and why you want to take her class and why you want to do research with her, for example. I can't underscore that enough. The schools want to know that you know who they are, and Wharton is no exception, but who they are in context to who you are, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how is that knowledge that you get in the class going to allow you to become a better contributor, or a better person in the workplace, or a better leader? And that, to me, is really important, and something that it's fine when you start out putting together a list of the 27 reasons you think Wharton's a great fit, but then you want to make those super personal.
Yeah.
Michel, if I can draw you to the one about not giving reasons to advocate for this candidate in committee. And it ties in with one of our viewer questions, who said, examples of things that adcoms can use to advocate for the candidates. So what might those examples be?
The way that that you don't give them a reason to advocate for you is, I think, that lack of the personal information and the backstory and who you are. If you have, again, let's go back to, okay, you have the great test scores and you've, worked at some good companies, and I see a promotion, but then what really falls short is taking the time. I'm going to go to the essays, because for Wharton, once you really go through the application, that is the meat of how we truly get to hear your story. That was the killer for me, to go to Judith's point, is the like, I want people that want to be at Wharton. And if you want to be at Wharton, sorry.
You just sounded like the Snoopy, like the
oh yeah, the teacher.
That teacher, yes.
Yeah. Is really not doing the extra work, which goes to really, okay, all these buckets, Matt, I'm going to say the cut and paste, the laundry list.
You're making us sad, Matt. Don't do any of these things.
Yeah, because here's my thing. Like, if you're joining us today, you're not going to do these things, right? You're here, you're showing up. We're at May 29th. You're going to go do your outreach and research. and get excited like we're excited. And you're going to bring that to Judith's point about just not listing a class. Again, they know what they offer. They know about the McNulty Leadership Program. You can say, I want to go to Antarctica. Amazing. But why? Why is it amazing for you? So not giving us a reason to advocate for you is not bringing that oomph. Let's be honest. There's a lot of amazing people, right? Like, so it's like we're going to yell for all of them, which goes back to Judith's original point. We would have loved to have 50 extra spots to give people to, right? We here, and I don't think we've said this yet, is when in the admissions committee, when we did this, we are looking for reasons to admit you. We are excited. We love our jobs. We want to craft this class. So give those to us, take the time. We're taking the time and the thoughtfulness of reading. We might start in the middle at the essays, but we are going to read from beginning to end and learn everything you are submitting and presenting to us, and be thoughtful about it. So that end bucket, like, that's on you because you didn't take the time to put into it. And that comes down to, I'm going to tell you, poor planning, the cutting and pasting, and then you know what? Maybe we're not your top school, and best of luck to you. But I mean, it's a tough one, but I mean, and I'm honest.
And presumably getting to know the candidates, again, ties in with one of our viewer questions. If they then reapply the next 2 years later, you probably still have their stories in their heads. So our viewer's question is, can I change my long-term career goals if I reapply? It's not that they're now a completely different person. So what would your advice, Judith, be for the reapplicant?
I think that you can certainly, as a reapplicant, say, I've given some more thought to what I might want to do with my MBA. And I've talked with these people, I'm thinking about this, I'm reading this. So you can certainly change your mind. You want to give the story and the background and the information that explains why you've done that. So it's not set in stone. People change their minds all the time, right? But you just want to express, hey, I didn't change my mind because I thought it would get me into business school, but I changed my mind because this thing, this person, this research is really compelling to me. It's a great question because I know that you might feel a little trapped. Oh, I applied, it didn't work. What do I change? Give the schools your backstory about why you might now have a different set of things you'd like to accomplish after applying.
Right. And those career changes could have come up, a discussion with your boss or someone that's close to you, perhaps a person that you'll then turn to support you in your applications. I hope you both like the transition that I'm trying to make to our next slide.
Well done, Matt. You get host of the year.
But these voices really matter. It's not like, yeah, great candidate, we're really pleased with their work. Again, it would be giving you insights, Michel, into the individual, perhaps what makes them tick, what their value system is, how they show up every day. So recommendations, really something to plan and to be very thoughtful with.
Absolutely. One of the first things I just discuss with my clients is, who are you thinking about? Because recommendation letters, let's be honest, are most likely, if you're picking the right people, are going to be positive and supportive, like you said. But how can they really enhance your candidacy? Again, they're partners with you. You get to tell your perspective and your story, and they get to tell, this is our perspective of the candidate, of what they've brought to our company, how we value them, again, how they stand out from their peer group. It is a key piece, again, to go back to our last slide, advocating for them in committee is wow, look at these recommenders, what they shared. And that goes to being specific and sharing anecdotes and stories of what this candidate did, what they brought to the team, to a leadership role. How did they think about things? Were they thoughtful? Did they work with cross-functional teams? Did they have to call early in the morning to India? And how did they deal with that? How did they deal with a setback or, constructive feedback? So it is a key component. So ask the right people. The questions we continue to get is the title. It is the relationship you have with them. The direct manager, someone that sees you work day in and day out. It is not the VP, the principal, 2 steps up from you that, checks in with you and gets a report or you see every month. It is that real direct manager supervisor that has that insight and can bring that, professionally and personal qualities that you would bring. And then to really prep them, as we say, with what does Wharton value in the classroom? And that goes back to understanding the school with the words collaboration, et cetera, because they ask you a little bit different questions than some of the other M7s. They are very similar, so you can, help your recommenders, prepare those. But it is a finding success in the classroom. What does that look like and feel like? Team-based discussion, contributing your knowledge and background, what you've done professionally with them, and the opportunities you've been given. And also, I think, what kind of teammate are you? Are you the people seek out for help? Do you step up and train the interns, or take over the training program, et cetera? And then really, what does your future look like, and how you'll find success? So that leadership potential, and what do your recommenders see as that star that you will become, and why? Again, and how have you shown that, again, through their specific stories that they can share? So again, being strategic about who you're picking, but also guiding them and helping them, understand the process if they're not already aware of how it works, and what you would like them, bullet points, to make sure that they include about your strengths, analytical skills, etc.
And with all of these different pieces, Judith, the resume, the familiarity the admissions office will have with, the bullet points of the private equity associate, the software engineer at Google, or the consultant among the big four. Here's a chance really to bring those perspectives to the committee that they won't find in your essays, or it's not just repeating the bullet points of your resume, right?
Correct. It is very much an opportunity for your recommenders to talk about ways in which you've impacted the organization that may or may not be related to, examples that are on your resume. And I want to really express that the Wharton application is looked at from start to finish. And so all the different pieces and sections and ways are fitting together to give the committee an opportunity to get to know you. So you want to make sure that let's just say there's 100 different points of contact in that package. Each one of them is going to share something else that is really great for the committee to know about you, which is why you want to make sure that your recommenders understand where you're coming from, what's important, what you want them to speak to on your behalf. I know it's a little tricky because you are managing up in most cases, and you're asking a favor of people that are very busy. But to me, your best foot forward on this is to really give them as much guidance as you can about what you would like them to share on your behalf. And again, as Matt mentioned, this is not, anything should be a regurgitation of things that they've already seen. It is using those, let's just say, I'm calling it 100 points. I could be slightly off. Those 100 points should all be speaking to different parts of who you are as an applicant.
So recommenders, as supportive as they are, they won't be with you in the room for the team-based discussion. And I just want to bring in a question that Kia has asked. She's framed the question beautifully. And it's a really great question. Taking a candidate from being an interview invite to being accepted. Now, as you would read the essays, look through the resumes, go through the letters of recommendation, the application forms, was your first thought, I want to meet this person, let's invite them to interview? We haven't made a decision. They're not in, as Kia has framed. Or was it like, okay, they're accepted? I mean, the interview must play a key role. Who wants to start with that one?
Michel.
Okay. I will say first, it is definitely getting to the interview is a huge achievement. I'm going to say just specifically at Wharton. So you need to feel proud. You need to feel confident going into the team-based discussion. Next is they are excited to learn more about you. And through the team-based discussion, Wharton is looking to learn more. Okay, great. I get to see, what is Michel going to be like in a team environment on her learning team? Is she, how thoughtful is she? Is she a good listener? Is she prepared with her pitch? Is she ready to get rid of her idea and jump on board with what the group decides? How is she helping the ball move forward towards, the final decision of when they present? So getting from interview to invite is being that great teammate. And again, thinking about, again, I know some people don't work in teams or meet in teams. And what do you see yourself as? What's the role you normally take in a team? And again, we will prepare our clients and do a mock in the sense of thinking about that and preparing them, and just bring your best self. I will tell you, people have wonderful experiences after the team-based discussion, is because I think, again, they were positive and they're like, I'm going to do me. And what does that mean for you? So and I said this before, is your success, so going from interview to, invite, is you're in a group of 5 to 6. You are not all 5 of you or 6 of you trying to get one spot. Don't think of it like that. There are 6 spots available. All 6 of you can make it in. Remember, you're all coming from different backgrounds and bringing different things. So that's not how the admissions team is looking at it either. They are just looking for replicating what you will be like in our Wharton environment. Is it a good fit? Are you thoughtful? Are you like, ooh, tell me more, about that idea, etc. Right? And we say things like, elevating others. Michel, your pitch was great. I haven't heard. I was wondering what you think about this. Bringing other people in if they're a little quiet. All those, abilities is something that they are looking for. So again, if that is something you can do, and I think your application should have been replicate that, or have shown that you're able to do that, and you have those qualities, there was evidence of that, is now you get to kind of show it in a very fast environment, in the sense of you're thrown together with people you've just met and make it happen and make it work. But it's exciting. And I think that is ultimately, again, all you can do. So I would say is, right, there is the team-based discussion, a quick 10-minute one-on-one, just to reflect on how it just went and have a quick discussion. And that becomes part of your application. So I tell my clients, very few people, I think, come out of it and be like, that was the worst, interview I've ever had. There's no way I'm getting in. Maybe there were some more challenges that you would have liked, but you also have to be prepared to, how do you respond to those challenges? So it becomes part of your application, that write-up from the interview, and then we'll go to committee with that final, yes, again, do we want this person in? They showed these qualities. It was a tough group, but you know what? They really were able to shine and be thoughtful about how to, have a role within that group to find success. It's again, they are looking to admit you. And if you've gotten to the interview, it is enjoy it, prepare yourself for it. We have lots of great tips and, ways to give you to prepare you, but just being your best self to succeed.
Right. So all of the feedback from the team-based discussion comes back to committee. You're all sitting there, admit, waitlist, perhaps for a handful. And for one of our viewers, Judith, they then got dinged after the interview. And that happened with 2 or 3 other schools. My first thought was, let's jump on a call. So do reach out.
I would love to talk to you about that, for sure.
Because the natural question is, they met me and then said no. So any additional thoughts for the reapplicant in that scenario?
That I want to make sure that you felt you were being authentic in the context of your interview, that you weren't sort of putting on this persona, or you weren't feeling, hey, this is who they want me to be versus this is who I really am. Part of the reason the TBD started was because I and Michel would travel around the world interviewing people, and we would hear the same story 15 times a day, because there was this expectation of learn this, say this, be this, over and over and over and over. And so what the TBD does is really encourage much more authenticity to see what you're like, albeit in a little bit of a situation, but a created situation, but to recognize that you're going to bring your strength to that conversation. And this is probably a lot more real life than sitting one-on-one and you feeling like you're being grilled about, something that happened 10 years ago. I recognize it's hard to imagine what could have gone on in that room. We don't really know you. For example, this person that's writing to you, Matt, but I do think it's worth a conversation to maybe uncover what was it that you feel like you shared, or were you not prepared for what was being asked? There's a lot of different ways to kind of understand what might have gone on during that interaction. And again, very happy to talk to you about it.
Yeah, and I mentioned earlier how seriously and the commitment that we give to these calls, trying to unpack, even in the application itself, perhaps things that were already a concern. The TBD feedback could have been great, but there was still, as you say, bringing that as another data point to consider. This candidates, so it won't all be just on the interview. I suppose the final one then, so people have been sending in some great questions. I want to leave time just to fire a couple of those at both of you at the end. But this idea of standing out, I think that whatever happens to international applicant volume in the current year, maybe you're working in the healthcare environment in Chicago and you're not competing with candidates from the Americas or Asia. You're not competing with those private equity associates on the West Coast. But again, it's about you and your story. And Michel, you've said, be the best person that you can be, whether that's in the interview, telling that true and authentic story. And we say that that's about being real, right? It's not about being perfect.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm just right over this slide quickly, which I've seen before, and we really lay it out really nicely about what is going to help you stand out. Again, ultimately, that first one, they want, again, being self-aware and doing that reflection and bringing that to your application is what is going to help you tell your story, right? And I think it's, it's just really being thoughtful and thinking through what's important to you. Again, challenges you had, how have you grown, how have you responded, do you have the grit? And I think a word I didn't use as much, maybe with the essays especially, is impact, the impact you've already had in different areas, and again, the impact you hope to make. And I think if you can just, again, highlight these points about yourself, again, and you've reflected on them and what really makes you who you are, your key strengths and those attributes, it is what's going to make you stand out. And again, it's a big class. There's, different backgrounds. They're trying to, again, shape a class. So tell them, again, how you stand out. And if you're in a consulting bucket, which I work with many people, an overpopulated one, how can you see yourself rise to the top? And you really do have to take time and reflect, prepare recommenders. And I think if you do that and identify those areas, you're going to find success.
Right. Again, I'm trying to thread in some excellent questions from
Yeah,
viewers.
they're great questions. I really.
So someone who's been in the same organization in the 3 years since they came out of college, and again, standing out. Now, we talk about highlighting patterns of behavior, Judith, and it might be things that they experienced during undergrad or in their community that have then come back in a project at work, being able to connect some of those dots for the underlying traits of leadership, mentoring and supporting others, different for every candidate. I love the idea of generosity. That happens to be one of my favorite words in the world. But these patterns, really trying to tease them out.
Yeah, I think that these show up in a lot of different ways. And it doesn't necessarily mean that you are working at a soup kitchen every Saturday. It may mean that you're taking people at work under your wing. It may be that you are still connected with your undergraduate institution and you deliver a talk one year to your sorority about what it's like to be in your field. It may be something that you enjoy doing on the weekends, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you're, always doing community service. I think that these things impact generosity of spirit, show in so many different ways. Are you the person that gets everybody together once a month for a Sunday night dinner? Are you the planner of group events, right? So showing your curiosity about others, showing the ways that you engage, that's a pattern that you see a lot of. It's not that all of a sudden you started walking dogs on Sunday mornings for the ASPCA down the street from you. Great idea, of course, if you're doing it. But it really is something that as admissions folks, Michel and I would see that was something that probably started back in high school with this ongoing engagement in the world around you.
Well, one viewer's just said, I've got so many questions, it might take more than 30 minutes. We're not going to watch the clock.
Which is why we're always running late. Matt and I are notorious for never being on time with these.
As I'm sure you've got a sense on this call, to actually have brought together, I love to describe them as the dream team, but all of these former admissions, because reading those thousands of applications, meeting candidates in different corners of the world, all of their stories, what is it about this consultant and this individual? In fact, it was a family story, something that they'd done for their brother or their sister, and it just stuck with me. And then how that unfolded as we discussed their profile in committee. It makes an incredible difference to the success that our clients enjoy. And I think back to this theme of enjoying this entire journey. Now, whether that's for Wharton, for other M7 schools. We've got wonderful colleagues that were at the top international business schools, the S10 schools, the likes of Fuqua, Haas, Anderson, among others. So please reach out so that we can have a very honest, candid discussion with you and hopefully get to the bottom of all of those questions. Perhaps a final session and a couple of the questions. Someone's got a career gap. Maybe they're not working at the time of the application. Heaven knows the economy is uncertain enough. How would you look at that in the application?
I would look at what they had been doing, what they would like to do, and then again, that optional essay where you're saying, because of X, Y, and Z, I was made redundant. It was not an obviously indication of performance. I'm currently doing this and this and this, and this is what I hope to do, right? So no, it's not, there's nothing bad about that gap. You just want to be able to talk about it and say what you're doing to fill your time. Either you're preparing for the GMAT, or you're learning about different industries, or you're having lunches to talk to people, right? All of these ways that you can then begin the next part of your life. It's never considered a black mark on your application. We just, in admissions, would like to understand what you've been doing during that time.
And also a lot of awareness. I mean, Microsoft has the highest market cap of any company in the world, but they just laid off 3,000 people. That the impact of AI. In terms of will the essays, will the application change this year, Michel? We'll soon find out. And one of our colleagues at Fortuna actually wrote one of the Wharton essays. But fundamentally, does that matter, Michel? Because the key elements that you're initially shaping, your story, that career vision that you were describing, those are things that you're going to be wanting to think about in the next 2-3 weeks before the Wharton application comes out.
That's exactly true, Matt. So regardless, I think you need to first focus on what Matt just said, the career vision, why is Wharton a good fit for you? My guess is that Wharton is not going to be changing. I think they've kind of finally nailed their essays, especially essay 2, after keep rewriting it. So, and again, there hasn't been any change within the admissions office leadership. You never know, but at the end of the day, we will know within the next couple of weeks. And I think there are many things you can do before you're already drafting the essays. So, and hopefully we've walked through those steps. And I think that reflection is really key to then bringing your best to those essays when they are finally released, and you can go ahead and start working on them.
Wendy has a great question, Judith, about the team-based discussion, because they present you with a couple of years ago. It was to do with their new Innovation and Entrepreneurship Center, how you'd work to launch that. Every year they change that business case. It's not so much can you solve the case, but the way you think it through, right?
Yeah. Exactly. Otherwise known as free MBA labor. Like, what better than to get a bunch of really smart people around the world figuring this out for you? So it is not about the case. It's just about how you approach it. Are you looking at the prompts? Are you understanding what the options are? Are you able to convincingly pitch? Hey, I come from a winery in Argentina. This has given me an experience of X, Y, and Z. This is why I think this Wharton problem can be solved by A, B, and C, right? I'm making this all up, of course. I don't really know anybody that owns a winery in Argentina, but I think that you want to understand what's being asked, and then how your experiences can really play into, or your understandings, or the way that you work, or the way that you interact can play into that question that you're being asked. So it's usually having something to do with the school, a new program, a new opportunity. How would you build it, right? Lots of different ways of kind of inputting what you know about yourself and how you interact with others to help solve this case. And I thought that was a great question, by the way. We're more than happy to talk to you a bit more about the TBD after this session.
Yeah, and there's just a ton of Fortuna resources that you can then look at, recordings like this one, to understand the TBD at Wharton, recommender recommendations. All of that insider guidance has been pulled together in Fortuna's Knowledge Center. There's one final question that I would like to address. It's very poignant and close to my heart, and it's very understandable that international students are saying, should I wait till next year to apply, given the political situation? And there is great turmoil. There are perhaps a couple of ways of looking at it. We're seeing now impact on visa policies. Some of it is country specific. There are, I think, some underlying tenets in terms of you, your profile. Clearly, they will want to look at your social media engagement, and perhaps that's something that you as a candidate should also review. Is there anything that the customs officer at JFK might look at and have an issue with? But these are uncertain times. You're going to be making a big investment in yourself, the financial investment that comes with that, and wanting to understand if you can then explore all of these extraordinary opportunities that Wharton and the other top schools will open up for you. Let's talk it through. Obviously, with your own personal situations, there is the strategic idea that if international volumes are down this year, this is perhaps a once-in-a-generation chance for you to actually secure your place at Wharton or another M7 school. We started this session by describing the record application volumes that Wharton and Columbia, Harvard was at a near record last year. Perhaps some of those figures are going to shift this year. So reach out to us. There's a big button on the Fortuna Admissions website for you to click, find a time that works for you, and it'll be an absolute pleasure. You can see why I enjoy spending this time with Judith and with Michel. Again, always learning things with both of you. Thank you for a fantastic session, and we look forward to meeting all of our viewers very soon in one of those consultations.
Thank you so much, everybody. So much fun to be together.
Thank you all, and good luck to all of you. And it's been a wonderful discussion today.